In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to add rate limiting to an AdonisJS application. But first, what is rate limiting? Rate limiting is a strategy for limiting requests on a server or service. That is, control the rate of requests sent and received by the server or service. It can be used to cap how often users can repeat an action within a certain time frame. For instance, trying to log into an account. Rate limiting can also help stop certain kinds of malicious bot activity. Rate limiting can also be referred to as request throttling. For the purpose of this tutorial, we will be adding rate limiting to users' registration and logging in functionality. Instead of implementing this from scratch, we'll be making use of a package called Adonis Request Throttler. We will be using Redis as storage for request info. So we need to install the Adonis Redis module. npm install AdonisJS/Redis. To install the latest version, I'm going to use the latest tag. Next, we need to configure the module using the configure command. Node is configure at AdonisJS/Redis. This has created the necessary file to configure the module, and we are going to display the instructions in the terminal. So the instruction is for us to add this code to the env.cs file to have the appropriate environment variable validations. I'm going to add it here. Then save this. Also, these environment variables have been added to the .env file. So now we can install the Adonis Request Throttler. I'm going to clear this out. npm install Adonis-request-throttler. You need to configure the package as well. Node is configure Adonis-request-throttler. So this has created and updated the necessary files. Let's take a look at the config file for this package. As you can see, we have a couple of options. So let's go over each of them. The first configuration is the max attempts, which is set to 10 by default. Maximum attempts is used to determine the number of requests a user can perform within a specific time frame. Then maximum attempt period is the maximum time frame within which user can perform requests. Then TTL unit, which is set to minutes, is the unit of the time frame. MEL means minutes. So this maximum attempt period will be 10 minutes. Then for cache storage, we set it to Redis, which I explained earlier. Then setting this to true will mean that the package will make use of the Adonis Redis module for caching. Next, we have limit exception params, which is basically the information that the exception that will be thrown will contain. This exception will be thrown when users exceed the defined rate limit specification. Then lastly, we have this, which is the information the package uses to verify a specific request. So we have the method, the host name, the URL, and the IP address. There are a couple of ways to make use of this package, but in this tutorial, we will be going with the middleware approach. First, we need to register the middleware the package provides inside the kernel.cs file. We are going to register the middleware as a named middleware. So we'll add it here. We will give it a name of Throttler2. Then the value will be Adonis/add-ons/request Throttler/middleware. Now we can apply the middleware to the routes or endpoints we want to add rate limiting to. Route.cs. So we want to add the middleware to the register route and the login route. So middleware. Then the name of the middleware, which we defined as Throttler2. Let's start the application and test this out. Node is serve-watch. For the sake of this tutorial, let's reduce this to 2 and set this to 1 minute. So let's try logging in. We are going to log in with wrong details deliberately. Now we should get the appropriate message which says maximum number of login attempts exceeded. Please try again later, and the code is set to e_limits_exception. And if I open DevTool and go to the network tab and try logging in again, again we get the exception. And if we take a look at it inside the network tab, we will see the same exception, and the status code has been set to 429, which was what was defined here. All we need to do now is undo this exception that is thrown appropriately. We can do that inside the global exception handler, that is inside the handler.ts file, which is inside the exceptions directory. We can add a undo method here to undo the exception. Public async undo. The undo method accepts two arguments. The first one is the error, then the second one is the context. HTTP context contract. Of course, we need to import this. Import from @ioc /Adonis/core/HTTP context. Then we will extract the HTTP context contract. So inside this undo method, we can check for the exception and undo it appropriately. So I'm going to have an if check here. If error.code equals e_limit_exception. We can undo the exception however we want, but for this tutorial, I will flash the error message to the session, then redirect back to the form. The context.session.flash. So notification will be set to the error message. So error.message. Then return context.response.redirect.back. Lastly, we need to call the undo method on the parent class. Return super.undo. Then we'll pass in the error and the context. I am using notification as the key of the flash message because I already have that set up in my view. So we can retry this. Now the exception is being undone properly and we are flashing the error message. So depending on your application, you can set this to whatever values you want. Ideally, I set this to 3 attempts. Then the maximum attempt period is 1 minute. While this tutorial makes use of a server-side rendered application, you can also follow the same approach if you are building an API. Then instead of flashing the message to the session and returning back, you can simply just return a JSON response. So in this tutorial, we looked at what rate limiting is and how to implement it in an AdonisJS application.